The air crackled with static as Lieutenant Maya Khan hurtled through the shimmering portal, her squad of elite dimension-hopping soldiers close behind. She landed with a roll, instantly popping up with her pulse rifle at the ready, eyes scanning the alien temple that loomed before her. Its impossibly vast pillars spiraled upwards, twisting around each other in a dance older than humanity itself, shimmering faintly with an ethereal glow dispelled from the icy particles of Saturn's rings. The enemy had thought us weak, she reminded herself, their overconfidence a fatal flaw. Intelligence had intercepted their plans. The HFY, believing humanity incapable of dimensional warfare, had buried the key to their armada's power within this temple. But now, the element of surprise was hers. Lieutenant Khan, readings indicate an energy surge. Sergeant Kim's voice crackled through the comms, barely audible over the hum of the temple's ancient machinery. Somewhere deeper within, the HFY command relay pulsed with power, an unguarded secret, overlooked by the arrogance of their superiority. "We have company inbound. Defensive positions," Maya barked, her voice cutting through the tension. Her team scrambled into action, each soldier a cog in the well-oiled machine of humanity's last, desperate gamble. They had honed their skills in endless simulations, but this was the test, their chance to flip the balance of power. A deep rumble echoed through the temple, the very walls shuddering with the charge of foreign energy. Suddenly, the HFY appeared, stepping through the swirling rifts they had opened with their hubris. Their insectoid forms glistened with an array of biotech weaponry, their mandibles clicking in a language that spoke of disdain. "Humans," their guttural voice echoed, dripping with contempt. "Why do you fight? You are but shadows in our grand design." Maya smirked, unflinching. "Shadows are where we thrive," she replied, as she unleashed a volley of plasma that danced through the air, igniting the temple's atmosphere in a blaze of defiance. The HFY staggered, taken aback by the ferocity they had not anticipated. In their eyes, she could see it, the first flicker of doubt. And then the ground shook, violently, as if the temple itself were awakening. Maya's heart pounded with the rhythm of their hope as she shouted over the chaos, "They think us weak. Let them see the strength of shadows." With a roar, her squad surged forward, pushing back the HFY as the temple's core began to pulse, a countdown to an unknown but inevitable escalation. The HFY had underestimated them, and now, they would pay the price. As the temple's glow intensified, Maya wondered not if they would survive, but how many more of these temples lay in wait, and how humanity would rise to each new challenge. This was only the beginning of the endgame. Sergeant Major Alex Grant tightened his grip on the hilt of his dimensional blade. The weapon hummed with an imperceptible vibration, a gentle reminder of its power to slice through the veils separating worlds. Around him, his squad, those who had survived the initial onslaught, moved into position, their breath visible in the chill of this forsaken place. The air here was dense, oppressive, as if the very atmosphere resented their intrusion. Beyond the jagged landscape, a storm of writhing energy crackled ominously, painting the sky with tendrils of unnatural lightning. This dimension, one of countless others they had traversed, was far from the uninhabited wilderness it had been on their last recon. "Sergeant Major," Lieutenant Jenna Vasquez said, her voice steady despite the chaos that had erupted only moments before, "Scans confirm it. The swarm's numbers are increasing exponentially. It's like they're being pulled from every corner of this damned dimension." Grant nodded, his mind racing. The swarm, an amorphous entity of shadow and malice, had already claimed the lives of 2 of his soldiers, and he was not about to let it take more. Their mission was critical. Retrieve the artifact, stabilize the dimensional rift, and get the hell out. The stakes were higher than ever, with Earth's very existence hanging in the balance. "Jenna, get those scramblers set up," he ordered, glancing over at the young lieutenant who had proven herself time and again. Her resilience was as much a weapon as her pulse rifle, and in these moments, he was grateful for her unwavering dedication. "On it," she replied, already moving with purpose. The scramblers were the squad's last line of defense against the swarm, designed to disrupt the entity's cohesion, if only temporarily. Grant's eyes swept over the rest of his squad. Corporal Marcus Tran, ever the optimist, was checking his ammunition with calm efficiency. Private Diana Hargreaves, the newest member of their team, was keeping her gaze fixed on the horizon, her fear barely contained. "Marcus, Diana," Grant called out, drawing their attention, "we're going to make it through this. Focus on your training. We've faced worse before and come out on top. Yes, sir, Marcus responded, a flicker of his characteristic grin appearing. Just another day in the multiverse. Grant appreciated Marcus's humor. It was a necessary salve in the face of despair, but he knew the young corporal understood the gravity of their situation. Each of them had lost friends, comrades, even family to the relentless war across dimensions. But humanity had persevered, and today they would do so again. As Jenna worked to deploy the scramblers, Grant's mind turned to the artifact. It was said to be a keystone, an anchor to stabilize the rift that had opened so perilously close to Earth's dimensional fold. Without it, the swarm would eventually find a way through, and their world would be consumed. A sudden movement in the periphery of his vision snapped him back to the present. The swarm was advancing, a black tide rolling with malicious intent. It was a living storm, each tendril a part of a collective mind that sought only to consume and destroy. "Contact front," Grant shouted, raising his blade. The squad responded with practiced precision, forming a defensive line against the encroaching darkness. Pulse rifles sang their deadly song, rounds streaking through the air with a luminescent trail. Yet, for every fragment of the swarm they shattered, more seemed to emerge, coalescing from the very shadows around them. The scramblers pulsed, distorting the swarm's form, but the effect was fleeting. "Grant, it's like they're adapting," Jenna warned, her voice strained as she continued to manipulate the devices. He knew she was right. The swarm was learning, evolving with each encounter. They needed to find that artifact and end this, and fast. "Jenna, Marcus, with me," he commanded, determination hardening his voice. "Diana, cover our retreat. We're going for the artifact." The plan was desperate, but desperation was a familiar companion in these battles. As the trio broke away, Diana took up position, her pulse rifle a beacon of defiance against the oncoming storm. The terrain was treacherous, each step a battle against the hostile environment. The artifact's last known location was a nearby spire of rock, its presence encoded in the quantum frequency the squad's sensors had detected. Jenna kept pace beside him, her eyes scanning for threats. "This is insane," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "Insanity's our specialty," Marcus quipped, his voice laced with tension, but unyielding. "Focus," Grant urged, though he couldn't deny the truth of their circumstances. Insanity was indeed the name of the game, but it was one they had to win. The spire loomed ahead, an obsidian monolith that seemed to pulse with an internal glow. As they approached, a low hum resonated through the ground, a sound that was felt more than heard. "There it is," Jenna breathed, pointing to a crystalline structure embedded within the rock. It pulsed with an ethereal light, the source of the dimensional imbalance. Marcus moved to secure their perimeter, his weapon trained on the shadows. "Hurry, Sergeant Major. I don't like the way the shadows are moving." Grant approached the artifact, feeling its energy thrumming through the air. His blade was the key, designed to interact with such anomalies. He reached out, the blade resonating in harmony with the crystal. As he touched it, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. The sky seemed to tear open, a cacophony of sound and fury as the dimensional rift reacted to their presence. The swarm surged, drawn by the artifact's activation. Jenna and Marcus fired into the seething mass, their shots precise but ultimately futile against the relentless tide. "We can't hold them much longer," Marcus called out, his voice barely audible over the din. "Almost there," Grant replied, his focus unyielding. The blade's energy coalesced with the crystal, threads of light weaving together in a dazzling display. For a moment, hope flickered. The artifact's power surged, a beacon of stability against the chaos. But then, a new force made itself known. The fabric of the dimension rippled as a figure emerged from the storm, a being of shadow and malevolence, its form coalescing into a towering presence. The swarm seemed to bow to it, as if acknowledging a master. "Sergeant Major," Jenna breathed, horror creeping into her voice. "What is that?" Grant's heart clenched, but he refused to yield to fear. The one controlling the swarm, he realized, understanding their foe's true nature. This was no mindless entity, but a predator with purpose. The creature's eyes, glowing with a sickly luminescence, locked onto Grant. It spoke without words, its intent resonating in their minds, a promise of annihilation. "We've got to finish this," Grant said, his voice firm. "Jenna, Marcus, cover me." Whatever happens, we have to seal this rift. Marcus nodded, the weight of the moment etched on his features. We're with you, sir. Together, they unleashed a barrage of fire, a final stand against the oncoming darkness. The air was thick with energy, the swarm pressing closer. Grant drove the blade deeper into the crystal, its energy a torrent of light. The ground trembled, the very dimension protesting their presence. And then, the artifact responded. A wave of power erupted, a shockwave that rippled through the air, slicing through the swarm with an incandescent fury. The creature recoiled, its form distorting under the onslaught. But the victory was short-lived. The ground heaved, a violent convulsion that sent them sprawling. The rift was collapsing, its stability shattered by the creature's interference. "Grant, we're losing it," Jenna shouted, her voice a mix of desperation and determination. He scrambled to his feet, his mind racing. They had to get out, but the path was closing, the way home slipping away. The creature roared, its fury a palpable force. Shadows coiled around it, a vortex of rage and vengeance. "Jenna, Marcus, fall back," Grant ordered, urgency propelling him forward. The artifact's light was fading, the rift threatening to consume them all. Marcus hesitated, glancing between the retreating shadows and their leader. "Sir, we can't leave you, that's an order," Grant barked, his resolve unbreakable. "I'll follow. Just go." Reluctantly, they moved, trusting their sergeant major to find a way. The path to the portal was fraught with danger, the ground unstable under their feet. Grant turned to face the creature, his blade a beacon of defiance. "You won't have us," he vowed, the words a promise to his team, to Earth, to all of humanity. The creature advanced, its form a storm of shadows. But Grant was unyielding, his blade cutting a path through the darkness. With a final surge of energy, he drove the blade into the heart of the swarm. Light exploded, a cascade of brilliance that shattered the shadows and seared the sky. The dimension trembled, the rift collapsing in on itself. Grant felt the pull, the inexorable draw of the void, yet he stood firm, his task complete. As the darkness consumed him, he thought of his team, of Jenna, Marcus, and Diana. They would survive, continue the fight. Humanity would endure. In the end, that was all that mattered. But even as the shadows closed around him, a flicker of light remained, a beacon of hope, a promise of victory yet to come. And in that moment, Grant knew that the fight was far from over. The iridescent veils of the interdimensional gateway shimmered and twisted, a kaleidoscope of colors that flickered tantalizingly across the faces of the soldiers assembled before it. Each hue seemed to whisper secrets of infinite realms, promising wonders and horrors alike. Sergeant Kara Voss stood at the forefront, her posture rigid, eyes narrowed against the pulsating light. Behind her, the squad of dimension-hopping soldiers, officially designated as the Temporal Expeditionary Force, waited with a tautness born of experience and uncertainty. They were veterans of countless incursions, and yet, the nature of their mission today seemed to press down upon them with an unfamiliar weight. "All right, listen up." Voss's voice cut through the low hum of the gateway's energy field. "Intel indicates that the Skarn have established a fortified presence on the other side. We've got a narrow window to sabotage their operations before they consolidate their hold across multiple dimensions. Remember, our primary objective is to gather intelligence, disrupt their command structure, and get out. Fast and clean." The soldiers nodded, but a tangible tension clung to them. The Skarn, an enigmatic race that seemed to bleed shadows and manipulate dimensions as easily as breathing, had proven a formidable adversary. Their technology was leagues beyond human capabilities, and their motives inscrutable. Corporal Jin Lee adjusted his gear, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. "Sergeant, with all due respect, do we really stand a chance against them? Every encounter so far has been, well, brutal." Voss met his gaze, her expression unreadable but her voice steady. "We do what we must, Corporal. Humanity's survival depends on it. Command believes they've found a weakness, and it's our job to exploit it." The truth, however, was far more complex. High Command's belief in a chink in the Skarn's armor was more hope than certainty, and the soldiers knew it. Humanity had been waging this war across dimensions with grim determination, masking their desperation with strategic retreats and feigned incompetence, hoping to lull the Skarn into overconfidence. But now, with the Skarn's latest movements threatening to unravel entire realities, the stakes had risen to existential levels. "Team, Move out, Voss commanded, and with synchronized precision, they stepped into the gateway, the world dissolving around them in a cascade of scintillating light. The transition from one reality to another was an experience that defied description. It was a sensation of being unraveled and reassembled, threads of existence weaving through a cosmic loom. As they emerged on the other side, the soldiers found themselves enveloped in a dim, oppressive landscape. The air was thick with a sulphurous tang, the sky above a swirling mass of bruised clouds, perpetually on the verge of releasing torrents of acidic rain. Jagged monoliths of black stone jutted from the ground, casting long shadows in the twilight gloom. Voss signaled for the squad to fan out, her eyes scanning for threats. It was eerily quiet, the absence of sound more unnerving than the chaos of battle. Each soldier moved with the practiced silence of predators, senses heightened, weapons at the ready. Private Naomi Vasquez, the team's scout, darted ahead, her lithe form blending seamlessly with the terrain. Her voice crackled over the comm, a mere whisper of sound. "Sergeant, I've got movement up ahead. Looks like a Skarn patrol." "Everyone stay sharp," Voss replied, motioning for the others to take cover behind the nearest outcroppings. "Vasquez, assess their numbers and report." Minutes ticked by, each second stretching into an eternity as the soldiers lay in wait. Vasquez returned, her face pale but determined. "It's worse than we thought. They've got a full platoon, and they're setting up some kind of device. It looks like a dimensional stabilizer." The words sent a chill through the squad. Dimensional stabilizers were the Skarn's most feared tools, capable of sealing off entire dimensions, making them inaccessible to human forces. If the Skarn succeeded here, it would trap humanity in this reality, cutting off escape or reinforcement. "We can't let that happen," Voss said, her voice fierce with conviction. "Prepare to engage. We hit them hard and fast, disrupt their setup, and fall back. We can't afford to be pinned down." As the soldiers moved into position, Corporal Lee found himself beside Private Vasquez. "You okay?" he asked, noticing the tremor in her hands as she checked her rifle. "Yeah," she said, exhaling slowly. "Just thinking about home. My brother's birthday is next week. Promised him I'd send a message. Can't do that if we're stuck here." Lee offered a wan smile. "We'll make it back. We always do." But beneath his words lay the unspoken truth that gnawed at them all. The Skarn were not just a powerful enemy, they were a force of nature, as relentless as the tides. No matter how often humanity feigned weakness, the Skarn adapted, evolving new strategies and technologies with a speed that defied comprehension. Voss signaled the attack, and the soldiers moved as one, a seamless unit of lethal intent. They descended upon the Skarn like a storm, weapons blazing, each shot precise and devastating. The Skarn were swift to react, their forms shifting through the shadows, enigmatic and terrifying. They countered with weapons of pulsing energy, beams that bent and twisted in impossible trajectories. The air crackled with the clash of alien and human technology, the ground scorched by the intensity of their conflict. It was a brutal dance of death, each side seeking to outmaneuver the other. But for all their skill, the humans found themselves pressed to their limits. The Skarn, anticipating their assault, had fortified their position with energy shields and automated turrets that spat fire with mechanical precision. Voss barked orders, directing her team with unyielding focus. "Fall back, regroup by the ridge, we need to come at them from another angle." The retreat was harrowing, the soldiers dodging between cover, their hearts pounding in their chests. Vasquez stumbled, a Skarn energy beam grazing her shoulder, the fabric of her uniform smoldering. Lee was there in an instant, hauling her to her feet. "Come on, Naomi, we've got to move." She gritted her teeth against the pain, nodding as they scrambled for safety. Around them, the world was a cacophony of explosions and the keening whine of Skarn weaponry. Reaching the relative safety of the ridge, Voss assessed her team's condition. "Status? Minimal injuries, but we're low on ammo," Corporal Lee reported, his voice tight with frustration. "And they're still setting up that stabilizer. We don't have the firepower to take them head on," Voss muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "But we can't leave it like this." It was a moment of desperation, the kind that tested resolve and revealed character. Voss's mind raced, searching for a solution, an edge that might tip the scales in their favor. And then, like a whisper from the depths of her soul, an idea took form. Lee, Vasquez, she called, her decision made. We're going to need a distraction. Something big enough to draw their attention away from the stabilizer. The two soldiers exchanged glances, understanding the implication immediately. It was a dangerous gambit, one that could easily backfire. But it was their best, perhaps only, chance. Vasquez nodded, determination stealing her features. We'll do it, Sergeant. Just make sure you get that stabilizer. With a quick salute, she and Lee moved off, their task clear. As they slipped away, Voss turned her attention back to the Skarn encampment. The odds were daunting, but if the distraction worked, it might just give the rest of the squad the opening they needed. Minutes later, a detonating charge rent the air, a dazzling burst of light and sound that drew the Skarn's attention like moths to a flame. Voss seized the moment, leading the rest of the team in a flanking maneuver. The ensuing chaos was a melee of shadows and fire. The Skarn, momentarily disoriented, fought back with ferocity, but the humans pressed their advantage with ruthless efficiency. Every step was a struggle, every breath a victory, as they carved their way toward the dimensional stabilizer. Time stretched and contracted, a manic dance of survival as the team closed in on their target. Voss's pulse thundered in her ears, her focus razor sharp as they breached the Skarn defenses. There it was, the stabilizer, a monolithic device of strange, alien architecture, its surface alive with shifting symbols of power. Voss approached it with a mixture of awe and dread, understanding the magnitude of what lay before her. If they failed, humanity's future could very well be sealed in this desolate dimension. Cover me, she ordered, dropping to one knee as she began planting charges around the stabilizer. Her hands moved with practiced precision, each motion a testament to countless hours of training and experience. The Skarn were regrouping, their numbers swelling as reinforcements poured in. The squad's position was becoming increasingly untenable, the tide of battle turning against them. Just as Voss set the final charge, a Skarn warrior emerged from the shadows, its weapon trained on her with deadly intent. Time slowed, the world narrowing to the single, chilling moment of confrontation. But then, from the periphery of her vision, a figure appeared, Lee, hurling himself into the Skarn's path, his body a shield of flesh and bone. The energy beam struck him with a searing flash, and he staggered, his face contorted in agony. No, Voss screamed, her heart lurching as she activated the detonator. The charges exploded in a brilliant conflagration, consuming the stabilizer in a vortex of destruction. The ground trembled, reality itself seeming to shudder as the Skarn's device was obliterated. But there was no time for triumph, only the desperate need to survive as the world unraveled around them. Voss scrambled to Lee's side, her hands slick with blood as she tried to stem the flow from his wounds. Hold on, Lee, we're almost out. His eyes met hers, pain and resolve mingling in their depths. Get them home, Sergeant. That's an order, she nodded, tears mingling with the grime on her cheeks. We'll make it, I promise. The remaining soldiers rallied around them, forming a protective perimeter as they fought their way back to the gateway. The Skarn pressed them relentlessly, but the team held firm, a testament to human tenacity and courage. Finally, the gateway loomed before them, a portal back to a world battered but unbroken. As they staggered through, the soldiers bore the weight of loss and the flicker of hope, knowing that this was but one battle in an unending war. Yet, in the depths of their hearts, they carried the spark of defiance that had defined humanity since time immemorial, a promise that no matter how dark the hour, they would rise again, stronger and more united than before. The ground shuddered beneath Sergeant Harper's boots as reality warped and twisted around her squad. She could see the jagged edges of the other dimension tearing through the air like fragmented glass, a kaleidoscope of alien landscapes bleeding into their own. The air was electric with the scent of ozone and something that reminded her of rust and old leather. Her team, Alpha Squad, had been through hellish dimensions before, but none had clawed at the fabric of their existence quite like this one. They were here to retrieve a piece of stolen technology, a device that had the potential to tear apart the very seams of the universe if left unchecked. The adversaries who had stolen it, the Veranth, were as ruthless as they were enigmatic, and they had an uncanny ability to manipulate the dimensional barriers to their advantage. Harper, we're picking up some strange readings, Corporal Jenkins murmured, his voice a low rumble over the comms. The device is active, and it's destabilizing the dimensional field around us. Harper nodded, though she knew Jenkins couldn't see her. His voice was a tether keeping her grounded. Options? Keep moving forward, Jenkins replied. We need to disable that device before it collapses the whole sector. They pressed on, weapons at the ready, and the environment around them shifted again. Now, they found themselves in a dense jungle, the air thick with humidity and the cacophony of alien wildlife. Visibility was limited, and every step felt like a gamble. Suddenly, the ground erupted in a violent tremor, and Harper had just enough time to shout a warning before a massive fissure opened beneath them. She leapt aside, grabbing Jenkins by the arm and pulling him to safety, but Private Lou wasn't so lucky. He slipped and fell, his scream cut short as the darkness swallowed him whole. Harper's heart clenched, but there was no time to mourn. She keyed her comms, her voice sharp and steady. Keep it together, team. We have a job to do. They moved with renewed urgency, the weight of their loss sharpening their focus. But the Verranth were relentless. As Alpha Squad pushed deeper into the jungle, the Verranth launched a barrage of attacks, their technology creating bursts of energy that warped the air and made the ground quiver like a living thing. The squad adapted quickly, moving in a staggered formation to minimize the risk of being caught in the open. Harper led them with a mix of precision and instinct, her mind racing through possibilities, calculating odds, and always staying one step ahead. Incoming on your 6, Jenkins shouted, and Harper spun, her rifle barking as she took down a Verranth soldier that had materialized behind them. The creature's form was a blur of chitin and shadows, its eyes glowing like embers before it disintegrated into ash. Nice shot, Private Ing said, her voice a mix of relief and admiration. Harper could hear the tension in her words, the fear that they all shared but refused to acknowledge. Their path was a gauntlet, each step fraught with peril. When they finally reached the clearing where the device was located, Harper felt a grim sense of triumph. It was a monolithic structure, pulsating with an eerie light that cast long shadows across the clearing. But the Verranth were waiting. A dozen soldiers, their forms shifting and flickering between dimensions, surrounded the device. Harper's mind raced, assessing the situation, looking for weaknesses, for something, anything, that they could exploit. We need a distraction, Ing whispered, her eyes fixed on the Verranth, her expression steely. Harper nodded, her mind already forming a plan. Jenkins, set charges around the perimeter. Ing, you're with me. We'll draw them away from the device. They moved swiftly, splitting into 2 groups. Jenkins and the remaining squad members slunk into the shadows, planting explosives with practiced efficiency. Harper and Ing advanced, drawing the Verranth's attention with a volley of gunfire that lit up the clearing like a storm of fireflies. The Verranth responded in kind, their energy weapons carving through the air with lethal precision. Harper ducked and rolled, her body moving on instinct as she and Ing laid down suppressive fire, doing everything they could to keep the Verranth occupied. As the minutes stretched into an eternity, Harper's thoughts flickered to her family back home. She saw her daughter's face, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, the way she hugged Harper tight when she left for another mission. This fight was not just about survival, it was about the promise she had made to her family, to return safe and sound. Charges are set, Jenkins shouted over the comms, his voice a beacon amidst the chaos. Do it, Harper ordered, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The ground shook with the force of the explosions, a chain reaction that sent shockwaves through the clearing. The Verranth were thrown into disarray, their formation shattered, and Harper seized the opportunity. Now, disable the device. Ing sprinted forward, her movements a blur as she reached the device, her hands moving with deft precision over the controls. But the Verranth were regaining their footing, and Harper knew they had only moments before they were overwhelmed. Hurry, Ing, I'm trying, Ing replied, her voice tight with concentration. This thing isn't like anything I've seen before. A Verranth soldier lunged at Ing, but Harper was there, her rifle blazing. The alien fell back, disintegrating into nothingness, but more were closing in. We're out of time, Harper shouted, her heart pounding in her chest. I'm almost there. Ng's voice was a thread of hope, a lifeline that Harper clung to with everything she had. But the Verranth were relentless, their attacks intensifying as they closed in on the device. Harper fought with every ounce of strength she had, her body aching, her mind a whirlwind of fear and determination. Then, with a triumphant shout, Ing twisted a final control, and the device powered down, its ominous glow fading to nothingness. The Verranth hesitated, their movements faltering as the dimensional instability they had been relying on began to dissipate. But the victory was bittersweet. As the Verrinth retreated, the ground beneath their feet began to crack and shift, the damage inflicted by the device taking its toll. Harper could feel the ground giving way, and she knew they were out of time. "Fall back," she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. They ran, the jungle closing in around them, the ground shifting and buckling beneath their feet. They barely made it to the extraction point when the ground finally gave way, collapsing into a chasm that swallowed everything in its path. Harper watched in grim silence as the jungle was consumed, the destruction a testament to the devastation the Verrinth had wrought. As they waited for the dimensional gateway to stabilize enough for their return, Harper looked at her team, their faces lined with exhaustion and loss. They had survived, but at a cost. The weight of their fallen comrade, of the lives they couldn't save, bore heavily upon them. But there was also resilience in their eyes, a determination that burned brightly even amidst the darkness. They had adapted, they had fought, and they had won a hard-fought victory. The gateway shimmered before them, a portal back to their own dimension. As they stepped through, leaving the alien landscape behind, Harper knew that this was far from over. The Verrinth would not rest, and neither would they. They were soldiers, forged in the crucible of countless battles, and they would continue to fight, no matter the cost. For their families, for each other, and for the future. But as the gateway closed behind them, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that their darkest moment was still ahead, lurking in the shadows of a future yet to be written. In the infinite tapestry of the multiverse, where each thread bore the weight of 1,000 worlds, there was one thread now stretched to the breaking point. It was the universe in which humanity faced its darkest hour. The dimension-hopping soldiers of Earth, the vanguard, were all that stood between annihilation and survival. In the endless cascade of realities, their struggle had become a flicker against the overwhelming darkness. The vanguard had fought for what seemed like an eternity through countless dimensions, each more alien and inhospitable than the last. The Curselings, that menacing legion born of shadow and spite, had spread their malevolent influence across the fabric of existence, leaving a trail of desolation in their wake. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, their few victories dwarfed by the unrelenting advances of their foes. On the shattered remains of Earth Prime, Commander Nathaniel Grant stood amidst the crumbled ruins of what was once New York City. The skyline, once a testament to human ambition, now lay in jagged shards, the remnants of towering structures casting long shadows across a blood-soaked battlefield. The air was thick with the acrid stench of smoke and ozone, mingling with the cries of the wounded and dying. The Curselings had broken through their last line of defense, and hope was a scarce commodity. Beside him, Lieutenant Amanda Chen surveyed the devastation with hollow eyes. Her armor was scorched and battered, her face a canvas of grime and exhaustion. "This can't be it, Nathan," she said, her voice barely rising above the cacophony of battle. "We can't let it end like this." Nathaniel nodded, his jaw set with grim determination. "It won't end here, not while we still draw a breath." He raised his gaze to the horizon, where the Curselings' dark spires loomed, anchored in the heavens like malignant growths. "We have one last play," he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. The vanguard's numbers had dwindled to a mere fraction of their original force, but their resolve was unyielding. Each soldier bore the weight of humanity's hopes on their shoulders, a burden that only fueled their determination to fight on. Among them was Private Ethan Ross, a young recruit whose eyes still held the glimmer of defiance despite the despair that surrounded him. "Commander," Ethan called out, breathless and wide-eyed, "we've intercepted a transmission from the Curselings. They're regrouping at their main stronghold, preparing for a final assault to wipe us out entirely." Nathaniel's mind raced, calculating possibilities at lightning speed. "Then we take the fight to them," he declared. "Gather everyone we can. We'll strike at the heart of their forces and give them a surprise they'll never forget." The remnants of the vanguard rallied, a ragtag assembly of the determined and the desperate. They had lost friends, family, and worlds, but they had not lost their spirit. As they prepared for what could be their final mission, whispers of hope began to weave through the collective despair. The plan was audacious, bordering on madness. The Curselings' stronghold was a fortress of twisted metal and dark energy, a citadel built to withstand any assault. Yet within its heart lay the key to their power, a dimensional nexus that anchored their forces across the multiverse. Destroying it would be a crippling blow, severing their ability to traverse dimensions and leaving them stranded and vulnerable. Hours later, under the cover of night, the vanguard approached the stronghold. The air hummed with the unnatural energy of the Nexus, a pulsing beacon in the heart of enemy territory. The Curselings, overconfident in their impending victory, had grown complacent, their defenses lax. The vanguard moved with the silent precision of predators, slipping past sentries and automated turrets. The element of surprise was their greatest ally, and they intended to exploit it to the fullest. As they reached the outer perimeter, Amanda turned to Nathaniel, her eyes filled with a steely resolve. "We do this together, Nathan," she said, gripping his arm with fierce intensity. "For everyone we've lost." He nodded, a silent promise passing between them. For everyone. They breached the stronghold's defenses, a calculated strike that left the Curselings reeling. Alarms blared as they carved a path through the enemy lines, their weapons blazing with the fury of a species backed into a corner. Each step forward was a testament to human ingenuity and tenacity, a refusal to succumb to the darkness that threatened to engulf them. As they fought their way to the heart of the fortress, the vanguard encountered resistance that grew more desperate and fierce. The Curselings, realizing the gravity of the threat, threw wave after wave of soldiers at them. Yet the humans pressed on, their determination unyielding. In the midst of battle, Ethan found himself separated from the main group, cornered by a trio of Curselings. His heart pounded with fear, yet he held his ground, his training taking over as he fought with every ounce of strength he possessed. A surge of adrenaline coursed through him, and in a blur of motion, he dispatched his foes with a ferocity that surprised even him. Rejoining the others, Ethan's resolve hardened. He was not just fighting for survival, he was fighting for a future where humanity could thrive, free from the shadow of the Curselings' tyranny. Finally, they reached the Nexus chamber, a cavernous hall dominated by the pulsating core of the dimensional Nexus. It was a thing of malevolent beauty, a swirling vortex of energy that defied comprehension. The air crackled with power, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Nathaniel and Amanda exchanged a look of grim determination. "Set the charges," Nathaniel ordered. "We take this thing down, or we die trying." The vanguard worked with practiced efficiency, planting explosives around the chamber. Each charge was a promise, a commitment to a cause greater than themselves. As they completed their task, the ground shook violently, a harbinger of the chaos to come. The Curselings, realizing the threat to their Nexus, descended upon the chamber in a frenzied swarm. The vanguard fought with the desperation of cornered wolves, their backs to the wall as they held the line. It was a battle of attrition, a test of wills that pushed them to their limits. As the countdown on the explosives ticked toward zero, Nathaniel and Amanda found themselves side by side, their weapons blazing in a symphony of destruction. "This is it," Amanda shouted over the din of battle. "We make our stand here." The chamber was a maelstrom of chaos, a battleground where the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Each second stretched into eternity as the vanguard fought with everything they had, their spirits unbroken despite the overwhelming odds. As the final seconds ticked away, Nathaniel cast a glance at his comrades, at the faces of those who had stood with him through the darkest of times. In their eyes, he saw the spark of humanity's indomitable spirit, a flame that refused to be extinguished. "Now," he shouted, his voice rising above the roar of battle. "For Earth, for the multiverse." With a deafening roar, the explosives detonated, unleashing a cataclysmic wave of destruction that tore through the Nexus chamber. The vortex imploded upon itself, the energy contained within it released in a blinding flash that consumed everything in its path. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. As the shockwave rippled outward, Nathaniel felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. They had done it. They had struck a blow against the darkness, a beacon of hope amidst the despair. Yet even as the stronghold crumbled around them, the battle was not over. The destruction of the Nexus had severed the Curselings' dimensional ties, but the vanguard still faced a fight for survival against those who remained. The battlefield was a hellscape of fire and smoke, the cries of the wounded mingling with the sounds of combat. But in the heart of that inferno, a change was taking place. The Curselings, their overconfidence shattered, faltered in their assault. Confusion and chaos spread through their ranks as they struggled to comprehend the sudden shift in the tide. Nathaniel, his body battered and bruised, rose from the rubble with renewed determination. Around him, his comrades were doing the same, their spirits unbroken. The vanguard, against all odds, stood defiant in the face of annihilation. The seeds of humanity's resurgence had been planted in the crucible of their darkest hour. Though the battle raged on, a new hope had been kindled, a hope that would spread like wildfire through the multiverse, igniting the hearts of those who had been beaten down but not broken. As Nathaniel looked to the horizon, he saw a future where humanity would rise from the ashes, stronger and more united than ever before. They had faced the abyss and refused to surrender. Now, with the spark of hope rekindled, they would fight on, determined to reclaim what had been lost and forge a new destiny among the stars. And so, on the shattered remains of Earth Prime, amidst the ruins of a world teetering on the edge of oblivion, humanity's indomitable spirit blazed anew, a beacon that would guide them through the darkness toward the dawn of a new era. As the first light of hope pierced the gloom, the vanguard prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to defy the odds once more. The air shimmered with the pulse of unseen energies as the dimension rift flared open, a maelstrom of colors and light, swirling like a cosmic whirlpool. Out of the portal stepped the contingent of human soldiers, their armor glinting under the alien sun. They were the vanguard of humanity, deployed to this strange and hostile realm, a realm that had never known the resolve and fire of Earth's warriors. Here, the skies were a perpetual twilight, and the horizon was broken by jagged spires of mineral towers that stretched toward the heavens like the fingers of some ancient titan. The ground beneath their boots was a mosaic of shifting sands and crystalline formations, whispering in alien tongues as the winds swept across them. Yet, amid all this foreignness, the humans stood resolute, their figures stark and unwavering. Leading them was Captain Marissa Voss, her eyes scanning the horizon with a predator's keen focus. The intelligence reports from their previous incursions had painted a grim picture of the enemy. The Xerians, masters of dimension hopping and war, who had subjugated countless worlds with their advanced technology and ruthless tactics. But there was something in the air, a charge of anticipation that hummed through every member of her squad. This was a turning point, a moment that would echo across the dimensions. Comms check. Marissa's voice was steady, carrying authority and purpose. Her team responded in quick succession, their voices crackling through the intercoms. They were ready, they had trained for this moment, and now it was upon them. The Xerians had not expected resistance, least of all from a race they deemed primitive. Their arrogance was their weakness, a flaw that humanity intended to exploit. The humans had learned much from their encounters with the Xerians, adapting and evolving with each skirmish. They were more than the sum of their parts, they were a force that had yet to be reckoned with. As they moved, the landscape seemed to come alive with the presence of the Xerian forces, emerging from the shadows like wraiths. Their forms were sleek, almost serpentine, their armor an amalgam of living metal and energy. The Xerian soldiers exuded an aura of superiority, confident in their advantage. But today, they would learn that humanity was not so easily cowed. Contact. 11 o'clock, Sergeant Cato's voice cut through the air, calm and precise. Marissa nodded, signaling her team to fan out, their movements fluid and synchronized, a testament to their training and cohesion. The first volley came from the Xerians, plasma bolts that seared through the air with lethal intent. But the humans were already in motion, their reflexes honed to a razor's edge. They returned fire, their weapons blazing with a ferocity that matched the fury of the storm swirling above. It was in the chaos of battle that humanity's true strength began to unfold. Where the Xerians relied on their technology, the humans wielded something more primal, something born of their history and spirit. They fought as individuals, yet their unity was unbreakable. Each human soldier was a nexus of strategy and improvisation, adapting to the ebb and flow of the conflict with an instinct that seemed almost supernatural. Corporal Mira Rodriguez, a sharpshooter with an eye like a hawk, took down Xerian commanders with pinpoint accuracy. Her rifle was an extension of herself, each shot a calculated strike that sowed confusion and fear among the enemy ranks. She saw the doubt flicker in their eyes, an acknowledgement that these humans were unlike any foe they had faced. Nearby, Sergeant Cato engaged in hand-to-hand combat with a Xerian soldier, his movements a blur of precision and power. The Xerian was strong, its limbs enhanced by technology, yet Cato fought with a grace and ferocity that transcended raw strength. He was a dancer on the battlefield, each strike a testament to human adaptability and tenacity. The tide of battle shifted as the humans pressed their advantage, weaving through the alien terrain with a deftness that belied their origins. They utilized the environment, turning the landscape itself into a weapon against their foes. Marissa directed her team with clarity and vision, her mind a strategic engine that anticipated the enemy's every move. Then, as if to crown this turning point with the weight of destiny, the skies above roared with a sound that shook the very foundations of this alien world. From the breach in the dimensions, reinforcements arrived, not soldiers, but engineers and scientists, the architects of human ingenuity. They brought with them devices crafted from the synthesis of Earth's technology and the spoils of their engagements with the Xerians. In the heart of battle, they deployed portable shield generators, creating domes of energy that repelled the Xerian assaults. They activated drones that swarmed and harried the enemy, their presence shifting the dynamics of the confrontation. The human forces, once seen as an incursion, now stood as a bulwark of defiance. The Xerians faltered, their confidence eroding beneath the relentless human advance. Their commanders, once aloof in their superiority, now barked orders with desperation edging their tones. They had underestimated these humans, and now they faced the consequences of their hubris. In the midst of this reversal, one human stood apart, a figure clad in the advanced exosuit that represented humanity's future. Lieutenant Jason Ng, a pioneer of the dimension-hopping technology that had brought them here, wielded an experimental device, a dimensional disruptor capable of severing the Xerians' connection to their own portals. It was a risk, an untested gambit, yet it was a measure of humanity's willingness to dare the impossible. With deft hands, Jason activated the device, its energy resonating with the fabric of the dimension. A shockwave rippled through the battlefield, and the Xerian portals, once stable and shimmering with malevolent power, wavered and collapsed. The path of retreat for the Xerians was severed, and their advantage turned to vulnerability. This was the moment, the crystallization of human defiance. The Xerians, for all their mastery of dimensions, found themselves outmaneuvered and outmatched by the relentless ingenuity of their adversaries. Humanity had turned the tide, and the realization dawned upon the Xerian commanders with the weight of bitter truth. They had underestimated the tenacity of Earth's children. The battle raged on, but now the momentum was undeniable. Human soldiers pressed forward, their resolve an unyielding force. The Xerians, once a looming specter of conquest, were now ensnared in the web of their own making, their fall from grace orchestrated by the hands of those they had deemed inferior. As the last of the Xerian forces retreated into the shadows, their forms flickering and dissipating like echoes in the wind, Captain Marissa Voss stood at the forefront of her team, the embodiment of humanity's indomitable spirit. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, gazed upon the horizon where the fight would continue, where the final confrontation awaited. The human soldiers gathered around her, their faces marked by the trials of battle, yet their eyes shone with a determination that burned brighter than any star. They had shown their strength, their resourcefulness, their courage. They had taken the first step toward a future where humanity would not be overshadowed by the specters of the multiverse but would stand as equals, as conquerors of their own destiny. In the wake of this victory, the message was clear, resonating across the dimensions. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were the inheritors of Earth, the harbingers of a new era. The Xerians and any other who dared to challenge them would learn this truth, a truth forged in the crucible of battle, tempered by the courage of those who refused to yield. The air was still, the echoes of conflict fading into the distance, yet the promise of what lay ahead lingered, a promise of defiance, of resilience, of a future unshackled by the chains of subjugation. Humanity had risen to the challenge, and in doing so, they had altered the course of destiny. The Xerians had been the first to learn, but they would not be the last. As the dimension rift began to shimmer anew, preparing to transport them back to Earth, the soldiers stood ready. For they knew that this was only the beginning, a prologue to the saga that would unfold across the stars and dimensions. They were the vanguard, the pioneers of the unknown, and nothing could stand in their way. The rift enveloped them, and with a flash of light, they were gone, leaving behind a world forever changed by the touch of humanity. The sky was a swirling tapestry of infinite colors, each hue a testament to the collision of worlds. The air resonated with the hum of the dimension gates, the portals through which the Arcthor hordes had poured into this reality, a relentless tide of destruction. They had underestimated the resolve of humanity, the indefatigable spirit that had been forged in the fires of countless battles across myriad worlds. The battlefield stretched across the convergence of dimensions, where realities were woven together in a tapestry of possibilities. Amongst this, the valiant soldiers of Earth stood firm, their armor glinting under the kaleidoscope sky, each heartbeat synchronized to the rhythm of the universe itself. At their head was Commander Lysandra Tai, her eyes alight with the fierce determination that had inspired legends. The Arcthor, beings of pure malice and chaos, had not anticipated the tenacity of the human spirit. They had seen humans as mere insects to be crushed, but now they faced a foe that refused to bow, to break. Their colossal war engines, monstrous amalgamations of metal and alien flesh, towered over the battlefield. Yet even these fearsome constructs hesitated before the unyielding human resolve. Lysandra raised her hand, the signal to her troops was clear. The time for defense had passed. The hour of humanity's ascendancy was at hand. Across the expanse, human soldiers moved with a purpose, a symphony of precision and might. Each step forward was a defiance of fate, each breath drawn was an assertion of their place amidst the stars. Now, she whispered, the word charged with the electricity of 1,000 suns. In perfect unison, the human forces surged. The ground trembled as the mechanized divisions advanced, their exosuits amplifying their strength, their resolve. Energy shields bloomed to life around them, shimmering barriers of light that deflected the Arcthor's attacks. The soldiers moved as one, a single entity with a singular purpose, victory. Above, the aerial divisions engaged in a celestial dance with the winged horrors of the Arcthor. Fighter jets, sleek and serpentine, wove through the sky, launching precision strikes that left trails of flame and smoke. Pilots pushed their craft to the very limits of physics, their skill and daring unmatched by any foe. The Arcthor squadrons crumbled before them, their formations shattered by the audacity of human pilots who knew the skies as intimately as their own breath. On the ground, the infantry advanced under the cover of artillery fire, the thunderous roar of cannons echoing like the voice of an ancient god. They fought with a fervor born of love for their home, their families, the indomitable spirit of humanity. Plasma rifles sang their deadly song, a chorus of defiance against the Arcthor onslaught. Every fallen enemy was a step closer to victory, every sacrifice a testament to the unbreakable will of the soldiers. The Arcthor commanders, watching from their command spires, saw their forces falter, their once invincible legions crumbling under the relentless human advance. They could not comprehend the force that stood against them, a force not of technology or numbers, but of something far more potent, hope. It was an element they had never possessed, a power that transcended the physical, that burned with the intensity of a dying star. In the heart of the battle, Lysandra Tai was a whirlwind of fury and grace. Her sword, forged from the very essence of a collapsing star, was a blur of light, cleaving through the Arcthor ranks like a scythe through wheat. Each swing was a testament to human innovation, the culmination of science and spirit. She was the embodiment of humanity's resilience, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. Push forward, she cried, her voice carrying across the battlefield, a rallying call that ignited the hearts of her soldiers. For Earth, for our future. The ground beneath them began to shift, the dimensional fabric of reality trembling as the Arcthor attempted one last desperate gambit. They sought to tear the very plane asunder, to drag humanity into the abyss with them. But the humans had prepared for this, their scientists having foreseen such a move. They had devised a countermeasure, a technology that intertwined with the very essence of the universe. In the midst of the chaos, the dimensional anchors were activated. These devices, fruits of human ingenuity, stabilized the fabric of reality, binding it with the strength of 1 billion souls. The Arcthor's plan unraveled before their eyes, their desperation laid bare. The humans had turned the tables, their understanding of the cosmos surpassing even the Arcthor's ancient knowledge. The balance of power shifted as the humans pressed their advantage. Across the battlefield, the Arcthor lines broke, their warriors falling back in disarray. The ground shook with the thunder of their retreat, the skies lit with the afterglow of their shattered fleets. In a final push, Lysandra led her forces into the heart of the Arcthor command, a citadel of impossible geometry and alien horror. Her soldiers followed without hesitation, their confidence unshaken, their courage unwavering. They moved with the knowledge that they were not alone, that across dimensions, across countless worlds, humanity stood with them. The citadel's defenses crumbled under the assault, its walls breached by the indomitable force of human will. The Arcthor commanders, those who had orchestrated the invasion, stood exposed, their arrogance stripped away. They looked upon the humans with disbelief, their once unassailable confidence replaced by fear. Lysandra, at the forefront, confronted the Arcthor supreme leader, a being of immense power and malice. The creature towered over her, its eyes burning with alien fury. Yet, in that moment, it saw in her something it had never understood: the light of 1,000 possibilities, the strength of a species that refused to be extinguished. "You thought us weak," Lysandra said, her voice a calm storm. "You thought us easy prey. But you have learned the truth. We are humanity, and we are not so easily defeated." With a final, decisive strike, she cleaved through the creature, its form disintegrating into the ether. The Arcthor were broken, their invasion shattered, their defeat absolute. As the dust settled, the battlefield lay quiet. The dimension gates flickered and died, their power extinguished. The soldiers of Earth stood victorious, their place amongst the stars secured. They had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, their unity, their resolve, their indomitable spirit having turned the tide. Lysandra looked to her troops, her heart swelling with pride. They had achieved what many thought impossible, had forged a path through the fire and emerged stronger for it. The Arcthor had been vanquished, their threat neutralized, their underestimation of humanity their undoing. The triumph of humanity echoed across the cosmos, a beacon of hope that would resonate through the ages. The stars themselves seemed to sing with the victory, their light a testament to the indomitable spirit of Earth's children. In the aftermath, as the soldiers began to tend to the wounded and honor the fallen, Lysandra stood amidst them, her gaze fixed upon the horizon. The battle was won, but the journey continued. They would rebuild, they would grow stronger, and they would prepare for whatever lay ahead. For humanity was a force of nature, a symphony of resilience and hope, and their story was only just beginning. The Arcthor had learned the cost of their hubris, and now, all the dimensions would know the strength of Earth. In this moment of victory, the future lay open, a tapestry waiting to be woven with the threads of possibility. The humans had claimed their place in the cosmos, and there was no limit to what they could achieve. The stars were theirs, and they would shine brightly for all eternity. As the dust settled over the war-torn lands of the dimension known among the troops as the Shattered Expanse, a new dawn broke, casting long shadows across the craggy landscape. The sun, a strange luminescent orb unlike any from Earth, climbed lazily over the horizon, illuminating the remnants of battle. It was a sight that would have inspired dread just days before, but now it felt like a promise, a herald of peace. The human forces, weary but triumphant, began the slow process of reconstruction. Captain Alara Morgan stood amidst the ruins of what had once been a fortress of the alien warlords. The landscape here bore witness to the ferocity of the final battle, a testament to the strength and resilience of humanity. She gazed over the scene where her soldiers, her friends and comrades, had fought with everything they had, where they had proven that humanity was more than a footnote in the chronicles of universal history. Alara's communicator buzzed softly, a reminder of the life that awaited her beyond this conflict. She tapped it, and the voice of Sergeant Kai Remington, her right hand throughout the campaign, crackled through. "Captain, we're getting the last of the wounded through the dimensional rift. The medics say we'll have them stabilized once we're back on home soil." The relief in Kai's voice mirrored the sentiment that had been spreading through the ranks since their victory. "Good work, Sergeant," Alara replied, her voice steady yet warm. "Ensure everyone gets the care they need. We'll debrief at base camp once everyone's accounted for." As she ended the transmission, Alara felt a sense of closure wash over her. The war had forged an unbreakable bond among her troops. Each of them had faced their own fears, transcending the limits of human endurance. They had not only survived but had ensured the survival of countless other dimensions, breaking the cycle of oppression wrought by the alien overlords. Nearby, Lieutenant Marcus Chen was coordinating the dismantling of the dimensional gate. He looked up as Alara approached, his expression one of deep satisfaction. "Feels surreal, doesn't it?" he said, gesturing to the alien technology that had once seemed insurmountable. "All this, and here we are, still standing." Alara nodded, her eyes tracing the intricate lines of the gate, once a symbol of their enemy's dominance. "We changed the rules of the game, Marcus. We showed them what it means to be human." Marcus grinned, the weight of years of battle slowly lifting from his shoulders. "They underestimated us," he said. "Thought they could squash us like insects. We taught them otherwise." Alara laughed softly, a sound that echoed through the stillness. "Yes, we did. And now, we have a chance to rebuild, not just here, but across every world that was touched by this conflict." In the days that followed, the human forces became a beacon of hope in the shattered expanse. They worked alongside the liberated alien races, dismantling war machines and restoring lands ravaged by centuries of warfare. The humans were not conquerors, but liberators, builders of a new era of cooperation and understanding. Diplomatic envoys were established between dimensions, fostering communication and cultural exchange. Humanity, once isolated and unknown, became a respected pillar in the cosmic community. Their dimension-hopping technology, initially a tool of warfare, was repurposed for exploration and exchange, opening up new possibilities for all sentient beings. Back on Earth, the soldiers returned to a hero's welcome. The streets were lined with cheering crowds, celebrating the return of those who had ventured into the unknown and emerged victorious. Among them, Alara, Kai, and Marcus walked side by side, their hearts full with the knowledge that they had not only changed the fate of their world but of countless others. In the aftermath, Alara found herself drawn to the quiet places, nature reserves and serene landscapes where she could reflect on all they had achieved. It was during one of these moments that she received a message from the Universal Council, the newly formed body representing the liberated dimensions. They offered her a position as an ambassador, a role that would allow her to continue bridging worlds. She accepted, recognizing in the offer not just a new beginning, but the continuation of a journey she had started long ago. She realized that the fight for freedom was not just won on battlefields, but in the hearts and minds of those who dared to dream of a better future. Meanwhile, Kai returned to his roots, setting up a training academy for young soldiers, teaching them not just the art of war, but the importance of empathy and diplomacy. His experiences had taught him that true strength lay not in domination, but in understanding and unity. Marcus, ever the engineer, spearheaded the development of new technologies that would aid in interdimensional travel and communication. He envisioned a future where knowledge and resources were shared freely, where every civilization could thrive without fear. As the seasons turned, the impact of humanity's victory resonated across dimensions. The alien races, once bound by the shackles of their oppressors, flourished. They adopted new technologies, embraced cultural exchanges, and joined in the shared endeavor of exploration and discovery. The legacy of the dimension-hopping soldiers became the stuff of legends. Songs were sung of their bravery, tales were woven of their exploits, and monuments were erected in their honor. They had proven that humanity was more than its flaws, that it was capable of greatness, of compassion, of forging a path through the darkest of times. In time, the dimensions healed. The scars of war faded, replaced by the vibrant tapestry of life and cooperation. The dimensional gates, once symbols of conquest, became gateways to new worlds, each one a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who had refused to back down. And so, as Alara stood before one such gate, ready to embark on a new mission, she looked back at the path they had carved through history. Her heart swelled with pride, not just for what they had accomplished, but for what they had inspired in others. As the gate shimmered to life, she turned to her comrades, her friends, those who had become her family in the crucible of war. "Ready for the next adventure?" she asked, her voice filled with anticipation. Kai grinned, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Always, Captain. Wherever you lead, we'll follow." Marcus nodded, his gaze steady and sure. "We've come this far together. No turning back now." With a final look at the world they had saved, Alara stepped through the gate, her heart filled with the promise of all that lay ahead. And so, humanity leapt into the unknown once more, not as conquerors, but as explorers, not as isolated beings, but as part of a greater tapestry of life. They had not only changed the rules of the game but had rewritten the story itself, proving that even in the vastness of the cosmos, humanity was here to stay. The gate closed behind them, but the journey was just beginning. For in every heartbeat, in every step, humanity continued to echo across the dimensions, an everlasting testament to the strength, courage, and hope that defines them. The stars awaited, and humanity, undaunted, answered the call.